Hi, welcome to Granny Annie Creates. Today we're going to make this Christmas tree in single crochets. So in two colours. I've used a blue, which isn't traditionally Christmassy, but I thought it looked quite nice. And I've used an Aran weight yarn. So I've got cream and blue. And I'm using a 5mm hook. So I started with 22 chains. So I'm just going to tie the loop onto my hook with a slip knot, and we're going to chain 22. So chain stitch, you bring the yarn over your hook, creating a new piece on your hook, and bring that new piece down through what was originally there. So it's number 1, 2, 3, and if you hold your thumb and forefinger, the work in there, and then the next 2 fingers, if you clamp the yarn, you can get a nice rhythm going by twisting the yarn onto the hook and down through, and you can get quite fast at doing that. But also, if you're a beginner, to do a chain stitch, you can bring the yarn over the hook with your hand and then pinch and bring that one over that one, pinch and bring it up and over. So however you get the yarn to follow you where you want to go, doesn't really matter, as long as you do 22. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So this is number 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Okay, so we're going to do a single crochet into the second chain from the hook. So there. Here we go, and the single crochet, go into the work, bring the yarn back out, round and off into the next one. Now, good placement of a stitch is under 2 of these bits, because then it anchors your stitch very well. So unless your pattern asks you to work in to the front or the back of the stitch, you need to aim to get it under 2. So that would be the front of the stitch, and that's the back of the stitch. So you want to get both of those bits on there, and that'll give you the proper placement of your stitch, and it'll ensure that your stitches don't go too lacy to start with. So we're just going to do single crochet all the way along. Generally slower on this first line, because you haven't got much work to hold on to, but once you're onto the next row, you've got all of this lovely work to grip, and then you can go a bit faster. So if you're unsure whether you've worked that stitch, that one I wasn't sure whether I had or not, just pull the yarn, and you can see that there's that bit of yarn in that one, and there's nothing in this next one. So we're in on that next one, because we only want 1 stitch per stitch on the starting chain. But a lot of beginners would think, oh, I need more in there. But as you can see, you've got some yarn in there, so you're going in on that next one. When you're a beginner, if you count your stitches as you go this way, because we counted 22 that way, and we should have 20 back this way, because we used the 2 as a turning chain. And then you'll always have the right amount of stitches. And if you find that your starting chain is a little bit tight, just go up a crochet hook or size or 2, do the starting chain, and then move back down to the size of hook that you want the whole work to work on, because then it will help you do looser stitches, or you could just loosen up on the starting chain. I find when I'm teaching people that have learnt to knit first and then crochet second are very tight on the starter chain. So you just need to loosen up a little bit because you need to work into these holes, whereas knitting, it's all about the tension. And you want to pull your stitches tight. On crochet, you want to work a little looser because, as I say, you're going to try and get your hook back into these holes. So if you've made them too tight, it's really hard work getting them in there. But as I say, you can always go up a size in crochet hook for your starter chain and then come back down for the rest of your work. So we've done a row of single crochets. And I'm going to show you a trick of how to keep your edges nice and straight like this. I mean, once you've been crocheting for a while, you won't need to do this all the time. I don't need to do it anymore, but it's a good trick for starters. You take your little safety pin and just pop it in the turning chain that we're going to do at the end of the line. So we've come to the end of our line and we're just going to do a chain of one. So bring the yarn over the hook and down through, and then in there where the crochet hook is, pop a little safety pin or a stitch marker that stays, and then that will remind us that there's a stitch to be had on that return when we come back to it. So as you can see in our design, we've done our 2 rows of white, and now we're going to bring in some blue or green or brown or red, whatever colour you fancy. As long as you use the same thickness in yarn, then it will look good. So I'm using an Aran weight yarn. So that turning chain is going to work that first stitch. So we're in on that second stitch, and as I say, the placement of the stitch is under the 2 like a V, and then it's nice and secure. Because if you see, if it asked you to go through the front loop, can you see that that makes it quite holy and lacy? And also if you were asked to go in the back loop and a pattern, it would also make it looser. But if it doesn't say, a normal placement is under the 2, and we're just going to do the single crochet. So bring the yarn back with you round and work it off, and then we're going to do that all the way along until we want to know where the middle is, because we want 4 stitches in the middle. So yeah, you can either fold your work out where the middle is, count back 2 on each side, so 1, 2. So we want to stop doing the cream there, so we've got another 1, 2, 3, 4 until we get to a blue one. So we've got 4 more cream single crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now on that last one before the colour change, we're not going to work that last bit off in the white. We're going to work it off in the next colour that we're going to use, because then it stops the colour changing being so obvious. So we're just going to pop that there. I'm going to take our next colour, so our blue, and we're just going to tie it on to the yarn that we've been working with. Just tie it on. I'm going to put 2 little knots, and I'm going to then push that down so I can start working with the blue. And you'll have a definite right side and wrong side to your work. Can you see that I've got floats on the wrong side of my work? So we're definitely going to have a right side and a wrong side to this. So this facing us now is the right side. So when you're doing your stitches, just make sure that they look good on one side. I'm going to bring the blue yarn into play. So I've just tied it on the work in white yarn, and then we're going to work these two white ones off with a blue bit of yarn. Then we're going to do 4 single crochets using the blue yarn. 1, 2, 3, and on the 4th one we're going to stop at that position. We're going to bring the cream yarn or white yarn around the back. Ooh, fiddly. And then we're going to bring the white one in, and then continue the rest of the row. Come here, just using the white yarn to get rid of some of these tails getting in the way. And then we're going to continue single crochet all the way along the line using the white yarn. And in that way we'll get a nice cluster of stitches that start and end. If you don't do that finishing off with the previous colour with the new colour, then you'd have a little bit of a join there, but because we've finished off this blue 2 stitches with the cream, it keeps it nice and neat. It's just a nice little trick for mosaic crochet. It's that if you work the next colour that you're going to use into the end of the previous stitch, get a nice clean, clear pattern forming. Right, so we've got one more stitch to be had at the end there. And then again, if we pop a safety pin, if I can find one. Where's it gone? Nope, never mind. Anyway, if I had a safety pin, if I popped it in there, it would look like the one at this end, and it will remind us that there's a stitch to be had at the end. I'll show you when we get there. But yeah, that's where you'd put your safety pin if you were a beginner and you wanted to remind yourself of that last stitch. So again, that turning chain that we've just done, turning chain of 1, works that first stitch. So we're going to go in on the second, we're going under the 2 little bits. So it's a nice firm placement of this single crochet stitch. I'm going to work back with the cream or the white until we get to the 4 blue stitches that are creating the bottom of our Christmas tree here. It's 2 rows of 4 stitches. Sorry, we'll just crochet along, single crochets, and we're now working with the back of the work facing us. As you can see, we've got a float there already, so we'll just bear that in mind when we're moving our yarn, because we want the front to look very nice and the back is where the fiddling of the yarns happens. So we're going to bring the blue into play because we're on to the last white stitch, and we want to start the blue stitch in the next one. So we're just finishing off this white stitch with the blue yarn like so, and then we're going to do 4 single crochets with blue. 1, 2, 3, and remember on the last one we change colour and we keep all the floats of yarn at the back of the work. And then work that last little bit of the blue off with the cream, keeping it all nice and neat behind. Work cream all the way to the end. Just before you go any further, make sure that can lay flat. Make sure your floats are long enough, because if they're short, they're going to bunch the work up. So just run your finger along or put it down and press it flat and make sure that the front looks nice and neat and it can lay flat so the floats are long enough. If not, at this point, it's quite easy to pull back and redo whatever needs doing. Single crochet all the way to the end. And when we get to the end, I'll show you why show you in a minute why this safety pin works so well, because when you get to the end, sometimes it looks like maybe there's a stitch there to be had, maybe not, but because we've put the safety pin there, it says that there's one more stitch to be popped in there, and that will help your edges to stay straight. So if you find that your work starts decreasing, it'll be that you're missing that last little stitch on the turning chain. So then we're going to turn our work. So we're going to give ourselves a turning chain of 1, and again we're going to pop the safety pin in just to remind us that that is a stitch to be had when we come back. Now we're working at the front of the work, and as you can see on this one, there's a line of just white single crochets before we then start on a line of blues. There, that's that.